Today in our entitled parents, one tried to get me fired. Another charged my job $80 for a blanket. Quick stories. Sorry for format. I've worked with kids for 13 years. I've had two interactions. New to the sub, not sure on the rules, but I'll post both here. Sorry if it breaks the rules. M1. I worked at a home daycare. Every Friday after nap time, all sheets and blankets are gathered to be sent out for washing. There was this kid named Jake. He was an entitled brat who threw tantrums over nothing, and after this I knew it was because of his mother. He had two blankets, and he would bring one at a time to the daycare each day. One Friday I accidentally put it out for washing because we were behind, and I grabbed stuff quickly. His mother came to pick him up. I apologized and said he would have it back Monday. She tells me he has the other one and it's fine. Monday the blanket is back and my boss comes to speak with me. Jake was apparently so distraught all day on Friday. They had to buy him another one and they billed the daycare for loss of property. The new baby-sized blanket was $80. My boss paid it because the mother made a huge fuss and got confrontational. M2. Got a job at a comic book store and it's free comic book day. That means we buy comics companies make and give them out for free on the first Saturday of May. My boss tells me we only have so much. Let's keep it 3 per person. I'm new. It's my first one of these and I wanted to follow orders. M comes up with her son who's about sis. He has a few comics. I politely say to the little boy, you have quite a bit, and I'm sorry I can only let you have 3. Do you want to pick out your favorite ones and just take those? He nodded and picked out 3. Was giving me stink eye but didn't say anything. Next day my boss gets in a May and said she was a long-time customer. She wasn't, and was upset at how horribly I spoke to her son. I swore at him and made him cry. I snatched all his comics out of his hand. He handed them to me and I put them in a bag, and, because of my boss's poor choice in hiring such an unpleasant and rude girl, they will be no longer shopping with us and will be going to the other store they were forced to go and get comics from after I abused her son, unless my boss fires me. If they were really customers, they would have known the man standing next to me. The entire interaction with her is the owner. He told me don't worry about it. He only sees her on Pick and she tries to take a bunch every year. No loss. This next one is entitled. Entitled mother blamed young lady whose arm nearly cut off by the criminal son. This is not my personal story. I collected it from newspaper. Whoever visits Vietnam will know that the major traveling vehicle of the country is motorbike. Visiting Vietnam, you can see motorbikes everywhere. However, many robbers also use motorbikes to commit crimes. The cast. Criminal son, the gang's leader. Young lady ill, victim of and his gang. Entitled Mom M. His mother. The story. In 2012, there was a case about 4 young adults, about 18-19 years old, using knives to rob a young lady at night. This was the gang's leader. At 8 p.m. L was riding a which was considered as the most expensive motorbike in my country at that time. Then suddenly she was attacked by 4 men to rob the She was slashed by the knives and nearly got one of her arm cut off. Her handbag was stolen by the robbers as well. Fortunately for the lady at that time, there were a few people passing by. The lady screamed for help. The robbers cannot start the engine of the so they had to give up and run away. The knife wound, which was very deep, was later repaired by surgeons. but she no longer has full use of her arm, according to doctors. Eventually, all of these robbers were arrested. It turns out that the mentioned case was not the first crime these scumbags had committed. They had committed about 15 cases. And his gangs were taken to the court, and the fun time began. M was really entitled. She screamed relentlessly at her son victims. The bitch ill is the one to be blamed, not my son. Why the she would ride such an expensive scooter and wear luxurious jewelry, which encouraged my son to rob her. If I know my son would receive a death sentence, I would bring a knife and stab ill right at the court. My son receives the death sentence because of you rich bullies. My son only cut Al's arm. He did not kill her. Why the would he be sentenced to death? Lucky for the Xandam, but not satisfying for us because of the changes in the law. Didn't receive a death sentence, but a life imprisonment. You can read the news here. Hetz via news. The Society 249,432 violent bike robber gets dead. Killer. The son robbed a young woman and nearly cut off her arm. The entitled mother blamed the woman. This next one is entitled M keeps laundromat open 5 hours after closing. I used to work at a laundromat a few years ago. In case anyone hasn't worked at or been to a laundromat, we didn't really have a closing time. It was called last load, which means you have up until that time to start your laundry, but not after that. Our last load time was 10, so that way basically, if you started your laundry at 10, it should be washed and dried by 11:30, 12-ish. If no one is there at 10, we usually close and lock the doors. We were usually there just before 10 every night so we could enforce the last load time, as well as clean all the machines, collect the money. We had 15 washers and 10 dryers. One night things were slow, and it looked like an early night, until we had a Lady M show up at like 9:55 and ask if we were still open. I told her yep, last load was 10 p.m., so she could still start her laundry. She smiled and told her son to bring in the laundry. They brought in over 10 garbage bags of laundry. I had stupidly told her she could start it, so I had no choice but to let her do it. But I knew it would be a long night. They used every washing machine, but luckily they were able to fit everything in. This was about 10:30 though by the time they got everything started. So simple math, the washers would be done at about 11:30, and then the dryers would take at least another hour, so with cleaning up after them I was looking at least owning before I could leave the rate. The washers do finish at about 11:30, and she now has to load the dryers, but some stuff can't go into the dryers apparently, and needs to be hung up. So she slowly starts loading the dryers and hanging stuff up as she goes. She fills all 10 dryers by about 12-ish. But as I said before, we had 15 washers and 10 dryers, so she still had about 5 loads that didn't fit in the dryer. So when the first loads are done, at about onium, she unloads them and starts loading in the other 5, setting them for another hour. And apparently everything needed to be folded. Not at home right then. Every sock, every shirt, every face cloth meticulously folded. We had 3 tables, and they were all full of her clothes. It is now 2, and our lights are on timers, so they shut off, and the place is basically in darkness. The only lights are the front lights, kept on for the security cameras. I did warn her, but she didn't seem to care. I could have turned them back on, but I wanted her to hurry up and leave. While she was folding her clothes, I am cleaning the washers in the dark. She left them covered in Kleenex and dirt, but that's just normal for the laundromat. Suddenly I hear her putting more money into the dryer and restarting it. I turn to her, and she says, sorry, they weren't 100 dry yet, so I politely say, as I can at tune, but that's the last. No more after this, she smiles, and says, okay, I return to my cleaning, and I hear her put in one last quarter, like I wouldn't notice or something. The dryer finally stops at 2:30, and I'm standing there watching as she takes the stuff out. Still not dry, she says, and she puts it back in the dryer and closes the door. Luckily, I stopped her before she put the money in. Sorry, that was the last load. Please, she tells me in another few minutes. I'm sorry, Nay. You've already taken 4 hours after last load. That's more than enough, I tell her. Fine, she says as she takes the clothes out, and still folding individual piece. Finally, at close to 3, she finally finishes, and bags everything. Her and her son load everything into her car, and they leave, not even a thank you for letting her stay so late. I still have to clean the dryers and tables and sweep mold. So I was there till at least 3:30. Luckily for me, I only lived across the street. Sucks my parents were the owner, so I wasn't paid by the hour. Just for the night, not the last time stuff like this happened either. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, smash the bell, and whatever else our YouTube overlords require nowadays.